Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video, I am going to be painting a lovely little tuxedo cat on Fabriano 1264. It's a cold press paper. It's got some texture to it. It's a student grade, so it's pretty inexpensive. And I am keeping this video at real time so that you can see how slowly or quickly I work on a piece. Now, I'm just going to be using really, I think just 3 colors and mostly just one color. Right now, I wanted to start with the cat's eye, and I am using Rockwell Art. I think it's Angel Eyes. I don't know, it's a very light blue and it's got a shimmer to it. And I picked that eye color for this cat because this cat, even though that picture down in the lower corner is in black and white, it had beautiful blue eyes. And I don't usually see that color on tuxedo kitties, and so it was very striking. The photo on the bottom is from the Whole Cat and Caboodle in Kirkland, Washington. I went there for my anniversary, and it's just something that my husband and I like to do. On our honeymoon, we went to San Diego, went to the cat cafe there, and we really love hanging out with cats. Right there, I just pulled out a little bit of pink for the nose. And now I'm going in with some water to soften the area around the eye because I don't want things to look cut out. And also because this is a black and white cat, I want form and shadow to be created using the colors around it, if that makes sense. So like any shadows I put in are going to be that light blue or that earthy pink. And I'm zooming in so you can see better what I'm doing because it was pretty small before. But notice the eye, I left like a part of it unpainted and it's pretty small. And I don't work with a sketch, and that's why there is a grid on my reference photo. I use a Notinizer and grid app so that I can isolate values and see where elements need to be placed on my paper. That way I can paint loosely, but it gives me a reference that I can easily follow and use my imagination for where those lines are on the paper. Now, you saw the thumbnail. I'm going to go really modern with this one in that I'm really, other than those cat facial features, everything else I'm going to paint is going to be dropping in black paint and leaving white areas completely unpainted. So I'm going like hyper modern with this one. And right now I am just painting with clean water, and that's why I'm tilting my paper, and I even turned on the light on top because in order to see where I'm painting, since I don't have a sketch, I need to see the reflection. Because my plan is to paint shapes in just clean water and then using Daniel Smith Lunar Black, going in and dropping in fresh, juicy pigment. And this color is incredibly granulating, and so my idea is to see what sort of patterns I get if I just drop fresh, juicy pigment into areas of wet paper. Now, one thing I did not think fully through, and you will see that come into play later, is when I drop in my colors, I wanted everything to be very wet, and that means it puddles. But if I want to get good movement, I have to lift my paper, and that puddle becomes so heavy that it will drip, and I don't want drips. So I do have to be very careful when I'm lifting and tilting my paper because I do want my shapes to stay right where they are. I'm using an oil fan brush for this part actually, and that's because I don't want to introduce any more water. I just want to introduce pigment at this point. And the fan brush, because it's an oil brush, it's not soft, it's very hard and bristly. And it's great for creating some of those fur textures without it being very soft. I want this kind of hard and grungy, but also soft and flowing. It is a contradiction. It's black and white. Now I'm using the tip of that brush to place the ears of the cat. And one thing I am enjoying about this method is with how heavy the paint is and how it moves, it creates natural areas of light and dark. So it's not just like a flat, just block of color. There's subtleties in areas, and that's just the watercolor doing its thing without me. But notice I'm going pretty slow. Often I speed up my videos because I don't want you to be bored. And even though I do say that I'm speeding something up, I watch these sort of videos too, and even if I know it's sped up, I get this idea that I have to paint fast. Plus the idea of watercolor being, you know, something that you have to work quickly because you don't want things to dry. But sometimes that means I rush, and I don't want to rush. And I don't want you to think that you have to rush. It really can be a nice, slow, meditative process. And, you know, just take your time. It's fine. All right, dropping in that first bit on the body. And that puddle is pushing back up against it. I might have gone a little too wet for that spot on the side of its body. Now, one thing I want to note is as I go, I am going to follow that coat pattern as closely as I can, just because that's why it's my reference. I like that you can get a good sense of form just from the black patterns on the cat. But it's not going to be exact because I am going to change some things up slightly. And so since I'm not painting a pet portrait, I'm just painting inspired by a photo I took. But if I was painting a portrait for this cat's owner, I would want to be much more careful about getting those shapes perfect. Because it's one thing to paint a cat, but another thing to paint a pet portrait. All right, so I've got my soft size 10 Princeton Neptune round brush, and now I'm painting in that big block of color on the back of the cat. And I'm tilting my paper just so I can see it. I want this shape to be convincing, and I'm being very careful because notice that one spot on the side of the cat, there is a big heavy water droplet, and I'm having trouble with trying to get my area shaped and wet enough while also getting really nervous about that growing droplet. And now I'm using my brush to pretend to paint the tail, and that is because if you notice in my reference photo, that tail is coming down and it's swinging outward, but I don't have room for that on my paper. And I think for the composition, even though the picture is a great composition, it creates an S-curve, I don't have the room for that. The tail will end up going off the page or it'll be too small. So I decided to, since I'm an artist, I am going to change the curvature of that tail. But first, I need to go and fill in the back of the cat while it's still wet. And so I just am dabbing in paint. I'm not rubbing my brush. I'm not scrubbing. I am just dotting it in certain places. And then anywhere that I want to create a little more shape, I do so. But for the most part, I just want to dot things in so that textures are created and so you get almost a dappled effect of light. And if you look up at the face of the cat, you can see where some of that watercolor has decided to pool. And thankfully in this case, it's good because it's kind of pooling around the eye, creating great contrast and shaping the skull of the cat. But it is something I'm keeping an eye on because if it's pooling in areas I don't want, I will want to adjust it while the painting is wet enough for me to do so. But so far, everything's going really well. It's a fun little experiment. Right back to the size 10 brush, and I am ready to put that tail in. But I want to make sure I get my shapes and proportions correct. And here we go. Going to make a big C curve. And part of the reason for choosing that curve is I want the cat's tail to all be in frame. I don't want anything going off the edge of the paper, but I also want it to wrap back into the composition because in a painting, the eye travels from one area to the next. And what I'm trying to do is encourage the eye to go back into the face of the cat. So you'd start looking at the head, then go down the body, and then what's that? The tail? Oh, it's going down and back up, and oh, you're back at the cat again. And so that's just a composition that I chose to try to keep the eye on my paper. And because I want that tail to be nice and soft, but it is a short hair cat, so I do have that clean line of water, but then just dropping in the pigment, and I'm doing it on like the top and the bottom of the tail, trying to leave some of the area unpainted so that the watercolor flows naturally. And then just gonna go in and drop more pigment where I think things are looking a little too pale. Darkening some of the tail, because kitty tails are so great, I want it to have lots of form. And then while the painting's wet, you can pick it up, tilt it, get patterns by encouraging the water to flow in certain directions. Just be very careful of where else is wet on your paper. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun to go in and drop in more pigment and watch it bloom. Word of caution though, don't do it too much. Like, I would encourage you, if an area is getting too pale as it dries, go in with another hit of pigment because you will get an interesting texture mark typically. But don't just do it because you're feeling good and having fun, which sounds like a stupid piece of advice when all the time I'm like, have fun, do what you want. Which again, you do what you want, but at some point it becomes too much and you lose some of that magic. So I would encourage, if you're able to, maybe have a couple of these on the go. And then that way you can play around, do maybe one in one color and see what happens, and do one in another color and see what sort of patterns you get. Because right now I'm using a black pigment that, even though it splits into granulation, it doesn't split into other colors. And so that might be a fun thing to do, is do one that's just in black and white, and then go find like a splitting granulating pigment. One that I think is fun is I have, in that last cat video I did, I had a blue that splits into a brown. Maybe try something like that and see what happens. But the whole point I was trying to make is sometimes too much of a good thing is no good. So don't pet your painting. We pet kitties, we don't pet our paintings. Also, cute thing I forgot to mention, do you see the other cat in my reference photo? That's the cat that I painted in my previous video. It just changed position. It was a very sleepy kitty. So now that the area of the eye is dry, I'm taking a very small liner brush. It's like a size 00 synthetic brush, and I am painting the pupil of the cat. And then cats often look like they are wearing lovely eyeliner, so I am outlining some of the eye. A bit of a downside in using the color that I picked for the eye, it dried really pale and really, I guess, cold. Looking back, I wish I'd picked like a turquoise to really make it pop, to give like incredible contrast. Also, I went to go do something and my hand smudged the bottom of that kitty tail. So, oh no, grab my trusty paper towel, and I'm not scrubbing, I am pushing down and I'm lifting. If I try to bleed it out with water, which is one thing I might usually do, then all of that paint's gonna go down to the bottom, and that's not what I want for this painting. Now, the painting is still wet and it's technically not done, so why did I go ahead and sign it? Well, I'm not really sure. It just felt right at the time. Sort of a, I've got my tiny brush out and it's already wet, may as well put in that signature because I didn't want to have to pull it back out again later. But since I do have this in real time, I'm able to see how long this painting actually took me, and it took less than 20 minutes. It clocked in at 18 minutes, 22 seconds. So I know that things are really busy right now, especially now that we are getting into the holidays. But try to find some time to just paint for yourself, to do something fun. Because I don't know about you, but painting with watercolor for me really helps quiet my mind. It grounds me. It's a fantastic way to just let stresses go away and just focus on playing with paint. So no kitty is complete without whiskers. Now, the whiskers on this cat were white, and how am I going to paint white whiskers on a white background? That is to use a very light blue, the same blue that I used in the eyes. And I like it also because they are shimmery, and so it just gives a little bit of shimmer to those kitty whiskers. And there, even though I still have some paint on my brush, that head of the cat is still wet, so some of that black pigment is being pulled into those whiskers that are above a cat's eyes, and that's perfectly fine. And then just kind of erasing one of those whiskers. And so how do I erase something? Just add water. And then I'm just careful not to touch anything that's wet around it, but I am dragging that pigment around like the neck of the cat because it will subtly give it more form. And here's the finished painting. If you liked this video, press that like button so I know to make more like this. And if you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell because I make videos every Monday and Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.